Good evening, good evening. Welcome to the very first episode of the Warriors Chronicles, a platform and a podcast to um, bring to you the stories of some heroic and brave men and women who serve our country. And on the very first episode, we got my good buddy and former shipmate and platoon mate, Danny. But he's a civilian now. But for the purpose of this first episode, um, hospitalman. You finished as a first class, right?
No, I got out as a second class.
Hospitalman, second class, FMF, and whatever other shit you did, man. Danny Lowderman. So, hey, man, I'm happy to have you on the first episode. When I thought about making this podcast, I was like, man, there's a lot of podcasts that I watch, um, and they talk to special forces guys, Marines, and all of that stuff. But there's just not any, from what I've seen, there's not enough podcasts really talking to hospital corpsmen, right? If they're talking to medics, right? I know corpsmen don't like the
Yep.
word medic, but they're talking to they're talking to like your SOCMs and your SARCs and all of that stuff. They're not talking, your PJs. You're not talking to the hospital corpsman. And obviously, we know hospital corpsman if is the or if not one of the most decorated rates in the Navy. And if you put the hospital corps, you know, resume versus a lot of these other medic roles throughout the armed forces, I think we would stack up very well. So the
Oh, for
floor is
sure.
yours. Tell the people who you are and where you're from.
Hello, Internet. My name's Daniel Louderman. I'm originally from Washington State, but joined the service, came to Camp Lejeune, where I did almost 10 years of service. Um, and then I kind of stayed. I got medically retired, and I just stayed in the greater Camp Lejeune area. So I'm still in North Carolina. But I guess what brought me to the Navy was I didn't do too well in school the first time. I did well as long as I went to class and took the test, but long story short, didn't do too hot the first time. So felt like Navy was my only option. Had a medical background to begin with, so with that, I found out what a hospital corpsman was, and I got a contract to join the Navy as a hospital corpsman. And then I went to boot camp. Then I went to Corps School at Great Lakes. Then I went to Sea School at Lejeune. And then I checked into my unit at 2-6, where they said, "Are you going to take any leave?" And I was like, "I might take some leave." And they're like, "Just joking. We deploy in 2 weeks." And that's where I met good old Denton here. And we were platoon corpsmen together. And then the rest of its history. Did Fallujah with Denton, and then we did a Mew together. But I think I got switched companies. No, we were the same company for the
Yeah, yeah,
Mew,
yeah.
and then we did the Mew. Not too much exciting there. And then I got back, and then I was made senior line corpsman for Fox Company, and then we went into Marja, Afghanistan, where that was the largest helo raid into a city since Vietnam. That was a pretty rough deployment there. Then I got back. I had to extend on station to go on that Afghanistan deployment, so I was trying to extend on station again because with the Navy having that seashore rotation of 3 years, I already hit almost 5 with 2-6, and tried to extend again to go to the next Afghanistan deployment and was told no. Um, so I was told I could go to a hospital. I had to go to a hospital or a clinic, something non-deployable. And I actually passed up orders to Naval Hospital Pearl Harbor because, man, I drank the Kool-Aid so hard. I mean, going from all those A schools to the green side and staying with green side. Um, I was like, I told my chief, I was like, I'm not going to make it at a hospital or clinic. I'm not built that way. And pulled some strings, and then I ended up getting hand selected to be a field medical training battalion instructor on the or East Coast on Camp Johnson. So gave up Naval Hospital Pearl Harbor, which a lot of people call me stupid, and stayed in the swamp. But I pushed students for about 4.5 years, and then I was actually putting in a PA package for the Navy PA program, and went in for my reenlistment physical, and I left on med board. Um, got blown up too many times in Afghanistan, and it caused a lot of brain damage, which one of the things resulted in neurogenic type 2 diabetes. So took my med board and got out. Went back to school, and then now I work in clinical research. So
Yeah, so that's why when I said, hey man, the first person I need to get on this podcast is Danny Lau himself. So I just want to back up. So your childhood, right? You grew up in Washington, right?
yep, Washington
Yeah,
State.
yeah, Washington State. Was anyone in your family like military?
Oh yeah, most of my family. So my dad was Navy. My grandfather on my dad's side was Navy. Um, my grandfather on my mom's side was Army. Um, almost all of my cousins um, were Navy or Army as well. One of them was I'm horrible at the Navy rates.
They
I
changed
think
a
he
lot.
I think he had something to do with ordnance, and then I had another
Was he aviation
cousin,
ordnance?
something like that. And then I had another cousin who was an officer that did biological warfare in the army, and I had another cousin who was in, I think, but I think he got kicked out. I don't know. I don't even know what branch of service he was in so little time. So quite a steep military background with the family.
Anyone in the family put pressure on you to join the military or?
My parents did initially because they saw where I was heading in school. They saw that I wasn't making right choices. I mean, I was just young. The Canadian border was right there where I was going to school. So I was just, drinking, partying way too much, not taking it seriously. Didn't really have any focus or drive in my life at that time, which I think 100% I gained after um, almost 10 years of service because I finished I finished a bachelor's in biology in about 2.5 years
Yeah,
after I got out. So I mean, the drive was there, and now I'm in clinical research. That drive is still going. Um, I've been working in clinical research for about just over 4 years now, and that I mean, when you hear those stories of guys saying companies want veterans because they have the drive, they know what to do, they can make decisions. I mean, being in the corporate for 4 years, a little over 4 years now, I see that, and um, I mean, I think that without that military service, it helps because one of the biggest transferable life skills that people seem to not have as much without the military service is critical thinking, and I think that that's one of those things in military service that you get um, that you just not against people that don't have service, but it's one of those things that you're forced to have in the
yeah,
military, especially when you're downrange, is that critical thinking. And I I I think that my civilian professional career has benefited from that tenfold because not only have I been in this new corporate environment for just over 4 years, I received 4 promotions since I've started. I started as what was called a clinical research associate. About a year later, I got promoted to a CRA2 or clinical research associate 2. About a year after that, I made senior CRA, and I was recently promoted to a clinical team manager. So now I manage a whole bunch of CRAs on specific drug trials.
that's badass, man. That's badass. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the one thing about I think you see a lot of people who join the military and they say, "Hey, man, I just was not disciplined to go to college." I mean, college people talk shit about college students all the time, but I mean, a lot of college students are broke. They got to work multiple jobs, and then they're told to, you just did however many years of school you do from grade school all the way up to high school, right? You don't even take a break. You take summer break from your senior in high school, and then you go to a big university, and now you have to meet all of these different groups of people, right, from different walks of life. you know, different classes, right? You got wealthy, middle class, upper middle class, right? Poor people there on scholarships, right? Affirmative action type stuff, and it's tough. You got to have discipline, right? And especially some of those people who don't have full rides to school, right? They don't have those nice scholarships. They gotta like work at like a subway or something like that to pay for college. So it's tough. So when you join the military, you got structure because everything, right? This is not a recruiting pitch. The military is having a hard time getting people in, but it's not a recruiting pitch at all. But there's something called a plan of the day, and it tells you what uniform you're wearing, where you're supposed to be, what time you're supposed to be at work. There's a barracks for you. There's a chow hall. There's uniforms if you don't have any clothes. So it provides a lot of structure. But I think once people do that, they were like, oh shit, man, I was able to do 4 years, 6 years in the military. I can easily go to college and get a degree and start climbing the corporate ladder or climbing the ranks or whatever field people choose to go into after the military. So you said that you always had a background in medicine, and that's why you kind of chose HM. Were you like an Eagle Scout or something, or a Bar Scout, or like you EMT, or
So with that, I mean, ever since I was young, I enjoyed medicine. So once I started high school, I found out that the high school that I went to was a very large high school. I think when I graduated, there were almost 4,000 students total in the high school. So in a high school that large, there's all the different classes in the world you can take. But I found out we had an accredited sports medicine program in high school, where the you had to be a junior because you had to take the high school prereqs. So you had to take like so many science classes. You had to take anatomy and physiology one, anatomy and physiology two, and then some specialized health classes. And then your junior year would be your first year as a athletic trainer at the high school. And we had like a full athletic training um, room, a couple rooms where we had full equipment. So we would actually get our training hours with the high school athletes. And when they got hurt, we were there from point of injury. And then we also did their rehabilitation um, after they got back. If they had to go to the hospital or something like that, we would run their rehabilitation to get them back. And we did all the preventative medicine. So we were doing ultrasounds, lots of ankle tapes. We had whirlpools, we had stims. We had big problem when it was wrestling season with wrestlers dehydrating themselves and getting sick. So we got some Tanita machines, and we were measuring their water composition every day. So I mean, it was pretty in-depth medical training. And then your senior year in high school, if it was your second year of sports medicine, um, you're not really necessarily learning more. Your senior year was now you were get a group of first years, and then you're training them. And so that took me into college, and I did sports medicine again a little bit in college. My goal was med school, so I was a excuse me, biology major, and I was going to pre med. Um, and so I was doing shadowing hours with doctors, and I did EMT ride-alongs, stuff like that. And then it was like got to the point where it's you can either drop out or we can kick you out. And I said, "What's the difference?" And they said, "If you get kicked out, good luck going to any other school ever again. But if you drop out, you have a good chance of being able to go to college again." I was like, "Okay." So I took all that medical background that I had and joined the Navy.
all right, so you go home, you say, Mom and Dad, I dropped out of college. What was what was their reaction?
Oh, they were happy. Not necessarily because they knew I wasn't doing well in school. Um, so they were actually pushing for me to do something because they're like, you can't just come home and sit on your butt. Um, you got to find some kind of job that can be a career. And my dad had a similar situation actually, which he was pretty big on me joining the Navy. So our stories are actually very similar with my dad and myself. So my dad was in college um, when the draft was going on for Vietnam, and my dad same thing, wasn't focused. You know, he ended up getting kicked out of college. Um, as soon as he got kicked out of college, about a week later, his draft letter came in. So he was getting drafted. And his dad, my grandfather, said, the survival rate of you going to Vietnam right now in the army is not good. So how about we take this draft letter and we go talk to a Navy recruiter to see what they can do about it. And so incidentally, they took the draft letter to the Navy recruiter. Navy recruiter's like, I can take care of this draft letter. We can get you in the Navy next week. Um, so then my dad joined the Navy. He was what they ended up calling, I think they're ITs now, but at the time they were DBs or databasemen.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he just sat on a frigate in an air conditioned room off the coast of Vietnam. He said it was so cold in that room he had to wear a jacket because they had to keep the computers cold.
Yeah.
Um, so and then he did his 4 or 5 years, got out as a second class, and then he went back to college, um, finished successfully, and then he started a career in corporate doing IT. So
All right. So
fairly similar.
you go to boot camp, right? Boom, you're in boot camp. Uh, were you integrated or was it all males?
We had we were the first boot camp to use one of the new buildings, or I think they call them ships.
Yeah.
They called them ships. We were one of the first. We were integrated as we had a sister division that we did very few activities with. Um, I think we did PT with them maybe, but that was about it. I mean, there wasn't that much integration, I don't think. But their birthing was across the hall from ours.
Yeah. What year did you go to? What month year did you go to recruit training?
Uh, June of 2006.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yes, I went in 2004, so I was just 2 years before you. So all right, so you go to boot camp, you go to A school, right? Core school, in Great Lakes. Well, yeah, you went to Great Lakes, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and okay, so and then your first duty station was you went A school and Phil Med.
Yep. A school straight to field med.
Okay, then
On Camp Johnson.
okay, so let what's tell everyone what's Phil Med, what it used to be. It's not obviously what me and you went through. It was um
So, field med or field medical service school or field medical training battalion. The name seems to be changing all the time, every couple of years. It's a C school that corpsmen need to have to gain the NEC 84 or 4, which is the NEC to be able to go greenside or serve with the Marine Corps. So any corpsman in the entire Navy that serves with the Marines has to go through that schoolhouse, and that the school is an 8-week course on military tactics, Marine Corps tactics, shooting, field ops, hiking, stuff like that, and combat medicine. All fit into 8 weeks, and then once you've finished that course, those corpsmen can then go serve with either the wing, the group, or division with enough basic knowledge to fit in with a Marine Corps unit and know how they operate. So if they were like me, you check into your unit and you deploy 2 weeks later, you're not sitting there on deployment after 2 weeks in the fleet and not knowing what to do.
I mean, me and you was in the same similar situation, but I don't feel like Phil Med ready me for that fucking deployment at all. What about you? Because
I mean,
where we was, I mean, I know when I got on that deployment, when I got to Fallujah, I wasn't in the best shape. Like I fell out of the first patrol.
I don't think. I mean, with the basics of what it did, I think it prepared us enough where I think the key to any of the training that I got as a junior corpsman or senior corpsman, it was all like on the job. So, I mean, we had Lee as a senior line, and
Yeah.
he didn't have much time to get us spun up. And so it was kind of like that old Navy, like you learn or you get your butt whooped kind of thing, which I mean, I excelled at. I mean, that kind of motivation worked for me. And I mean, but it's it's hard to say because we were what 4 weeks into deployment or 2 weeks into deployment. So I think we're 2 weeks in deployment, and Van Order got shot by the sniper, and then we had to build Turbet. No training is gonna, or no, it wasn't Turbet. That was Afghanistan. That OP that we had to build.
Along was that Fran was that Fran?
I
No,
don't
no, no.
remember, but like no training gets you ready for staying awake for 7 days, 7 days straight, building an OP with very little supplies. And but I mean, I remember when I was on patrol, we're heading back, and that suicide bicycle bomb hit. I mean, n- that, and that was pretty quick into deployment too. And nothing like prepares you, I don't think, but it's all you could have all the training in the world, but it's how you respond, I think, and the training does help a little bit. Um,
Well,
but
the reason why I say that is because um my first casualty was Webb, right? And, Webb got obviously. I mean, we're assuming that guy was on the roof, right? And then Webb was a saw gunner, and
mhm.
when the guy shot him, a lot of the bullets hit his drums that he had on his flak, and his own bullets, the 5.56, went into him. But I mean, I think it was just the grace of God. If some people believe in God, some people don't. But I mean, shit, I was just like, I didn't freeze up, you know what I mean? But I thought I would have, but I didn't. But I don't know. I just felt like, I think the training's a lot better now because they send them to MCT, Marine Corps, was it Marine Combat Training, and then they have to
Yep.
do like some live tissue stuff. But okay, so you get to we leave Camp Lejeune, you go to Fallujah. Well, we
Mhm.
stopped. What was Kuwait, then TQ, and
I think it was, yeah, Kuwait, and then TQ, and then
Camp Bahria,
Bahria, which that was the longest damn 7-ton ride I think I've ever taken.
and
And
then
then from Bahria, from Camp Fallujah, or is Bahria, which was also Camp Fallujah. Then from Bahria, which was our battalion uh, fob, we went to the company fob, and then we weren't there for very long, I think, because I think we were there for what, maybe a month or two, and then not even a month, and then we got tasked with building that patrol base and staying there for the rest of deployment.
no, we was at the five for a while though. We was at the five from we got there in March, right? No, I made 21 in Iraq, so we got there like April, and then I think we pushed out like in June. So we was on the five for about 2 months. But okay, so your first patrol, right? Your first patrol, boom, you're ready to go. First patrol, you do PCCs, PCIs. They exit friendly lines. Let me tell us how was you feeling, right? Just because A school, FMTB or FMSS. 2 weeks later, boom, you're in combat. We didn't do CAC, so we had this. They sat
Nope.
me down in that. They sat me in that classroom in the battalion classroom, and I just literally they showed me videos of Marines and soldiers and Iraqi army guys getting sniped, playing that weird music like oh the music they play. I don't want to offend anyone out there, but um yeah, and I was like, what the hell? Like, you feel what I'm saying? I'm like, what the hell? Like, what they trying to tell me I'm gonna get sniped? So, because when we got that, the sniper threat was real and the IEDs was real. So, okay, first patrol, you outside of the wire, you got you was with third or fourth? You was with
I was at fourth.
you was a weapons platoon.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're with weapons, you're going out, you got 12 plus guys, and you're the only guy. How old were you? How old were you at the time when we was in
I was probably 24.
24? Okay, so you older than me. And then boom, now you got these guys' lives pretty much. You got to be a Marine first, got to be a corpsman second. So I take me through it. First patrol.
Um, the first patrol, I just remember I was freaking out because we relieved that reservist unit that didn't really hold a security very well, and you hear all the stories before you go about Fallujah this and Fallujah that. So I was probably hyper aware. I was sweating bullets the entire time. Um, Finally, one of the Marines I remember told me that you don't need to point your rifle at everyone we come across. Because I was just like, oh my god, oh, there's someone over there. Oh my goodness. But it was really weird because so nothing happened on my first patrol, but I remember the first time I had a casualty, it was like all that stress like disappeared.
Yeah,
It was like there's no firefight, there's no I mean that's the part where like because as corpsmen are famously known for, as corpsmen are trained to run towards the sound of gunfire. I mean, and I believe that it's like doesn't even matter what's going around me anymore. I need to get to my patient,
yeah,
and then it's no longer like because we got tight with some of those dudes, but
yeah,
it's no longer you know oh this is my best friend, I was the best man at his wedding, those kinds of relationships. To me, it never came across that as soon as I had a wounded Marine, it was this is my patient, this is problem A, I have solution A. This is problem B, I have solution B. Okay, those problems are fixed. Are there any other problems I got to take care of? Um, but I mean, yeah, and I mean, the first of a lot of things. I mean, I remember going in slow motion. Like the first time, um, I don't know what that main road was up north of us. That big road. Um,
it had to be. I thought it was Fran or Mobile.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. That was the first time we got hit an IED, and I just remember vividly like it was the Vic in front of us, so it was the second Vic, like just smoldering pieces of metal, like just flying towards the vehicle, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. um, but yeah, it's crazy the things you remember. Um, but I think that deployment prepared me because yeah, if it wasn't for that deployment, I don't think Afghanistan would have gone the same way. And I mean, it sucks that we went from Fallujah to a Mew, where our med float non-combatant Mew to Afghanistan, because
Yeah,
there's definitely
a lot of those new guys who was quote unquote boots on the Mew was pretty much the
they're the
senior
senior
guys
dudes.
and the team leaders gone to Afghanistan.
So
But
yeah, it's definitely different going into like a Mew peacetime deployment, going into it with 70% combat vets, and then you leave the Mew and you're going into the circles of hell. And because I think the numbers came back, we deployed with 11% combat vets to Afghanistan.
yeah, that's
And I
nothing.
mean, and MEF capped us for Afghanistan too. So MEF said you could only take, I think it was like 980 personnel total, and that was including attachments. So we had engineers coming from third, um, and so like we didn't have enough people. All said and done, by the end of the deployment, we took 367 wounded in 17 KIA out of about 980. We were calling for combat reinforcements after the first month, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was that was when you definitely got your bootstraps on because um, the main difference, man, in in Fallujah, they didn't like to fight for very long.
Nah.
They'd pop
It's
shots and then they'd run away.
well,
Um,
like I was telling one of the junior sellers is that a lot of those, when guys like Sergeant Hamilton went through and Sergeant Major Reynolds and all those guys, right? Um, a lot of those guys like came from all around the world, right? They had people from
mhm.
China, Russia, uh, everywhere, Syria, that wanted to fight the Marines and the Army and our armed forces in Fallujah, right? And so I would call them like the professional Mujahideen or insurgents, right? Because they was going to fight toe to toe. But even though those fuckers didn't wear uniforms or anything like that, and they did a lot of using civilians as shields and all that stuff and planting IEDs and booby traps. But when we went in '07, right, a lot of a lot of what was going on was insurgents was going inside of people's houses and saying, "Hey, I'm going to kill your wife and kids." And the only way that's not going to happen is if you take this AK-47 or whatever, go plant this IED, go dig this hole, go plant this, go shoot at these Marines. And that's what I think that's a lot of what we was doing, because you're right, they was pretty much spraying and praying. They'll shoot from a window and drop their weapon. And rules of engagement was you had to have positive ID identification before you can shoot, right? Hostile intent, hostile threat, or whatever it is, hostile act. It's been a while. But shit, even whenever, like I said, when Webb got shot, wounded, I don't know who the hell I didn't see not one out of all the times we got shot at, I didn't see not one person. Um, Never. It was like ghosts. But before we move on to like Afghanistan, right? The awakening movement, right? So awakening movement, remember that was when we moved out of our fobs, and that's when we moved into the combat bases, right? So that's you guys was in what? You was in what was the name of your I was with Shahada. What was the name of your
I don't even remember.
you know that's the TBI, huh?
Yeah.
So but and so like okay, because the awakening movement was pretty much I went, because back then we was pretty much like a cog, right? We was just like
Mhm.
a piece of the puzzle. But a few years ago, I went back and read about the awakening movement, and pretty much I don't know if you read about it, but it was pretty much a bunch of sheiks and imams and a few insurgent leaders that turned good guys, decided that they wanted to try to like stamp out the insurgency. So the idea was that we got outside of our big old bases and we moved in amongst the populace, right? And do a lot of and like employ people, because remember we had that neighborhood watch, those guys in those blue polos, and we
Yeah.
employed people. We had the Iraqi army, we had the IPs who was sketchy as fuck, and a neighborhood watch, and like we employed them. We gave them money to go out and find weapons and um UXOs, unexploded ordnance, and all that stuff, and IED making equipment, which a lot of those guys was bringing that shit in, and it pretty much was them. It was their stash. It was just, I think they was just backdooring us. But that was the awakening movement. That was cool because, like, you got to meet some really good people. A lot of people think that everyone in Fallujah was bad, and I think we came across more decent people than bad people. But we had some bad apples. But you guys had, I mean, I think for us in Shahada, I think the only thing that we had bad when we went was a guy brought in this big ass unexploded round, and someone took a pop shot at us, like a sniper or something. But you had the infamous bike bomber. I had that picture on my share drive on my hard drive for a while, but I lost my hard drive on the ship in 2017. So tell us about that day, because I still remember where I was that day. I was at Fob. I was at the Fob. I was at Reaper, and I remember seeing the smoke plume going up. So what was that all about?
Well, because we're doing platoon patrol, so or squad plus patrol. So we were rolling deep, and it was with urban terrain, so we were staggered column on either sides of the road, and rules of engagement kind of changed after that. But don't let cars in between you guys, and but foot traffic and bikes at the time were allowed. Well, I think it was Reynolds and me were at the rear. We're holding the rear, and we're going around a corner. We're heading back to the platoon fob, and you just see one of this guy just riding his bike, goes down the street where the front of the patrol was, and then just boom, and we're like, oh crap, we'll go around the corner, and you know, guys are hitting the ground. Then we kicked in a courtyard because all the houses had those mud wall courtyards with the steel doors. Kicked in there, had a casualty collection point, started grabbing dudes, throw them in. Um, Most of the dudes were pretty shook because they were down that alley where Reynolds and I were in the back. So we didn't get a lot of that percussion. We didn't get a lot of that blast. And it was like just radioing stuff in, getting these guys checking out all the Marines, and then minus all the concussions, and I think we had some minor scrapes and cuts and stuff like that. It's getting figuring out what happened because we didn't know what it was, and then we realized it was this bike that was just pumped full of homemade explosives. The frame of the bike itself was pumped full of homemade explosives, and the guy detonated himself when he thought he was in the middle of the patrol.
He got a 70 mil virgins.
Yeah, or
All right,
something.
so that I mean that so that was that, and then we was getting ready to leave too. I think we only had like what about 2 weeks, 3 weeks left in country. We was getting ready to leave because we I think we was already back at the five. But okay, so we get back right, and then we get back, and then yeah, the Mew right because I think we didn't stay back for longer than a year. So
It
I
was
think
it was a 9 month dwell time between 9 months between the Fallujah and the Mew.
yeah. So we do
That
the we do the, we do the Mew right, like you said, the 26 Marine Expeditionary Unit, Special Operations Capable. I don't know about all that, but they said we were. Uh, we did that workup, and you came over the first platoon. Yeah, you came over the first platoon. So,
yep.
um, and then like the Mew was not very eventful, right? We did a lot of training. Um,
Went to Bahrain like 9 times.
yep,
Spent two
got
months in I think Kuwait. We spent like 3 weeks in Saudi.
yep, got drunk when we could, caused some mischief, but then when we came back, that's when shit got real because like you said, a lot of the salty dogs, they said, peace, I'm out. I'm about to go, I'm going to civilian world, right? And so how was that? How was that whole workup, that whole
It,
change of guard to go to Afghanistan?
it was tough. Mainly, you didn't have the experience. We ended up with a lot of. I think we ended up getting a couple more security force bubbas that, those guys don't know how division operates, and just a lot of boots. Um, and we were so undermanned that a Marine, I believe it was a Marine Corps order even came out that if you have, regardless if they're a boot or not, if you have a lance corporal filling a team leader role, instant promotion to corporal. If you have a corporal filling a squad leader role, promote them to sergeant instantly. So a lot of dudes got ranked real quick, right before we pushed, but it was a long workup because it was about a year workup, and the battalion commander we had, he was belt fed. He wanted to be the first to do everything. So I don't know if it's true or not, but I mean, like when went to CAX, Mojave Viper, we're supposedly the first battalion to spend the entire month out in the field because there's that little Camp Freedom or whatever it was that has like those barracks and
Yeah,
the little.
It's Count Wilson, right?
I think, but normally you go do you know range range 300, and then you come back, and then you go do the next range and operation, and then you come back. No, we stayed the whole time in the field, which was miserable. um like when we went to Pickett, I remember, we spent the whole time in Pickett in the field, and dudes were getting hypothermia because it was Virginia in the wintertime, and um from where we were bivouacked to the unknown distance range, which they don't tell the Marines this, but it's 5 miles from the bivouac site to the unknown distance range. So you just tell the Marines we're walking to the unknown distance range. Well, on the way back, it starts raining. It's middle of the night, and I still have dudes start dropping out for hypothermia left and right. Um, but it was a lot of training. It was you know, it it was a lot of field ops. I preferred the Fallujah way of doing it, not having any workup and just deploying. that's
Yeah,
that's much better. But it just seemed like it was the never ending workup. Um, but I mean, hindsight's 2020. I mean, if we could have gotten another month or two of more training, more mount down, more more ranges, who knows how things would have been. I mean, I think we deployed with about as much as we could get, but I mean, it's just rough because the difference was, I mean, they like to stay and fight. They like to stay and fight. I think one of the
Taliban, right?
longest, yeah, one of the longest firefights I think we had was 9 hours, 9.5 hours,
Holy fuck!
and
Did
I
y'all have to
mean,
get resupplied ammo?
like down to pistol ammo, bud.
Oh shit, that ain't doing nothing.
Like red on water, yellow on ammo. Um, but they were smart. They were smart and they were organized. And like we found out, um, they had caches everywhere of weapons, but they also had caches of medical supplies, and they even had an evac system. So the biggest problem was obviously they knew the layout better than we did. They knew where to hide and ambush us. And then once we finally start to close in, um, you know, and we'd be like, we know we shot that dude. We know at most we'd find a blood trail. They would clean up their brass, and later we found out they had their own evac systems.
Yeah,
So what they would
on those
do,
fucking motorcycles.
yep, they what they do is put the wounded dude on a moped, put him in a burqa to get through checkpoints. Because if they were in the burqa, you couldn't be searched because it was assumed they were a woman,
Yeah.
and they would take them to their doctors, um, and they were much better supplied too. I mean, not necessarily with IEDs because in Fallujah we had like 500-600 pound IEDs, and there were handfuls of those. Where the IEDs in Marja, they were everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, they were 25, 50 pounders everywhere. They put them in the trees to take out the turret gunners. They put them just everywhere. They had the helo ones where the pressure plates would with the rotor wash would kick up the ground. Um, two pieces of rubber with connectors on either side. A helo goes to land. Those go up. They connect. They blow up. They can blow up on the ground. They had a Dishka. I think they shot down a Huey with a Dishka while we were there. Um, but yeah, they love to fight.
So you said earlier that you guys you heloed in. You said you guys was
Yeah, 1-6 actually did the initial assault. They spent a lot of time at Camp Dwyer, and then they did the initial push. Um, they did the initial push in, which there's an
that was Hondo in them, right?
that was Hondo in them, and there's an HBO special you can go watch on that.
Yeah, I watched that shit a
Um,
couple times.
but then we go in. I think at the time, we relieved Bravo Company, and they were in Marja for a little over 2 months at that time, I think. And then their CO comes and tells us we haven't patrolled in a month because it's that bad. And we're like, what? You haven't patrolled in a month? What's your The security line past the fob was like maybe 50 feet, maybe 50 feet out. So the security line being, you know, you're safe within a certain distance away from the fob. I mean,
Y'all was getting hit as soon as y'all got outside the fire, pretty much.
day one, day one, we took 3 casualties
Yeah,
from a
because
comp.
I know Walls, right? Stephen Walls.
Yep.
He was telling me the same thing. He said, bro, as soon as they got there, he said they rolled up in helos, and he said as soon as they got the firefight, they had to get on the wall right away. It's like the Taliban was like was welcoming them in with lead.
Yep. Well, how that happened was the Bravo Company CO told us don't go towards the bell tower. The bell tower was this church in the middle of this field, about a click out, um, or a kilometer out, and he's like, stay away from the bell tower. So RCO was like, we're going to go to the bell tower, and so he sent dudes to the bell tower. The other CO was like, don't send them down any main avenues. RCO sent them down the main avenues, and as soon as that happened, complex ambush, IED, RPK fire, um, 3 wounded right off the bat. And
You responded to those wounded?
I did not. I called in the helo, and then I um, was coordinating the CASVAC from the
Who's your
COC.
junior corpsman under you?
Uh, let's see. I had a guy named Hunt. I had a guy named Curry. I had a guy named gosh, I can't even remember their names now. But all of them were. I had Waters with me,
Yeah,
but I had no combat experience out of all my junior dudes. Um, and then, but yeah, I mean, I had eight juniors.
were you the senior line corpsman for that deployment?
I was the senior line for that one. Yeah.
So you was rolling with the you was rolling with who? Who's your guys in CO and XO? You was at Fox, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
So we had Bender. He was our platoon commander
yeah,
on the Mew. He was the XO for that deployment, and then we had Captain Zepeda for our CO. Um, but yeah, I mean that's pretty crazy, and I never want to be outdone by the junior dudes. So I was going on probably just as many, trying to go on just as many foot patrols as I could. But then I also, because it was hearts and minds, and it was that whole, at the time it was new concepts, coin,
yeah.
the counterinsurgency
Counterinsurgency.
operations. Um, it's all hearts and minds. So I had a civilian aid station as well,
Yeah,
and where I'd treat anywhere between 5 to 30 civilians a day from, you know, I'm sick, to this hurts, to, you know, casualties of local civilians that got caught in the crossfire brought to me, um, because I was known as um, the dictor, and but yeah, I mean, I think one of the worst civilian casualties I think I saw was um, we didn't cause it. Some kids were playing around by a road and they set off an IED that was meant for us. And a 5 and a 7-year-old girl got hit by this like 30, 40 pound DFC. So a DFC is a directional force charge, which is essentially a homemade claymore. And that's what Hondo got hit by too. Hondo
oh
got hit by a
shit.
DFC. So and they'll pack them full of anything. They'll pack them full of nuts, bolts, spark plugs. I remember, um, I don't know if you remember, but when Hondo almost lost his arm, it was because a spark plug was packed in there and the spark plug went through his arm.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I wasn't obviously I didn't go to Afghanistan, but I remember he was telling me because he said he pretty much stepped on it, told his squad to run, and then when he tried to run, it fucking went off on him. Hondo
but
made it out fucking lucky.
yeah, these two girls got brought to me. They had, I think, 16 pieces of shrapnel through them. They both had abdominal eviscerations, and the 7-year-old had a perforated bladder.
Yeah,
And so all my other dudes were on patrol. So it was like me, and I grabbed one of the Marines that was in the COC that was pretty proficient with combat life saving, and I'm like, tourniquet all of the arms and legs, you know, and I'm gonna try to work as best as I can on their abdomens, and they were bleeding so profusely through their abdomens. I just remember I had just pile of hemostats, and then I had a Bovipen too, which is battery powered cauterizer for those that don't know. And like, I know, we're told not to take their insides out.
yeah.
It
They changed
basically,
it. I think they changed how they treat it now. I think you can
because the problem is that junior dudes, they would get so full of adrenaline, they would shove insides back in,
cause more
but
damage.
cause more damage because they didn't, they're causing torsion, or they're ripping other stuff when they're throwing it back in. But through a lot of the live tissue and other stuff I had, I knew that about 30 minutes outside the body, the intestines like expand huge. So I was like, and there's just so much bleeding. Um, I scooped up all their insides, put them in my lap, and I'm hemostating the big bleeds, and I'm cauterizing the small bleeds, and I'm putting their abdomens back together, closing them up, and then I didn't have any. I mean, I had fentanyl lollipops, I had morphine, I had Valium, I had Percocet pills, but I didn't have any peds doses for anything.
Yeah.
Um, so the best I could do is give them Tylenol. Finally, I got an interpreter over to me. And I'm like, I need to know what they're saying. And he's like, I cannot tell you. I was like, what do you
Was
mean?
he not from that area?
He wasn't from that area, but he didn't want to repeat because he was so proper. He didn't want to repeat what those little girls were saying. And he's like, it's not very nice. I was like, I need to know what they're saying. And he said, the one girl was telling me that she hopes the the doors of hell open and swallow me whole. And I was like, well, that's fine. I understand. I'm causing a lot of pain. Um, but then I with some of the once I got their abdomens taken care of, I started working on the appendages. You know, switching over to pressure dressings. Maybe hemostating bigger bleeds, trying to releasing the tourniquets, but keeping them on. But finally, um, after arguing with um, with battalion because they weren't going to send any helos to pick up the girls. They were telling them to get a ground evac from locals to Lashkar Gah, which was the closest hospital, which is about an hour and a half drive away. I was like, these girls are not going to make an hour and a half drive. So finally, after 8 hours of arguing and sitting on top of these two girls, luckily because I had all the radios with me too, I got on one of the radios and I heard that we had a really solid JTAC with us, and he's like, Doc, there's air on station. They're en route back to Dwyer. Here's the radio. Talk to them. And I was like, listen, I don't know what you guys got, but I have two tiny girls, civilians. They're 5 and 7 years old. They need to get to the next level of care. And the pilots agreed to land. We loaded the girls up, and then they got to Dwyer. Um, the cool story with that is 2 weeks later, those two little girls walked back into my aid station and were told by the surgical team, whoever did your initial care, go to for your post op.
Yeah.
So they both lived, but I mean, it was it's pretty crazy. I mean, I remember. I mean, by that time I was pretty salty. Super salty second class. I remember one time it came because we were so spread thin. We had 3-man OPs, like a click out, and there were just three dudes there. And I remember one of our dudes got shot by a sniper when he was in the tower, and I just got back from foot patrol. The Marines already took their gear off, and I was like, "We gotta go." I was like, "Doc, we just. What do you mean?" And because I still had all my radios on, but luckily EOD was geared up, and the two EOD guys we had with me were like, "Doc, let's go. You want to go? Let's go." Excuse me. And I was like, I was like, this, but COC, this Doc Cloud be advised, leaving friendly lines, two U.S. Marines, one Navy corpsman, and 12 ANA, because that's all we had time to leave. I'm like, Doc, you can't leave. I was like, Marines shot. There's no corpsman there. We got to go. And I remember, man, I had a lower. That's when that mother strength comes in because I got up into the tower, and it was one of those HESCO towers, and I had a strip gear. We're still taking fire, and you know, he was paralyzed from about chest down. Couldn't really even use his arms because the round went through his back,
Oh shit.
and so I was like, "I'm sorry, I can't give you morphine," because I
Yeah,
was
because
like,
you're gonna paralyze his breathing.
so. But I remember I had to lower him from the tower by myself. So I just grabbed I got his gear back on him and I grabbed this flak jacket and I just lowered him down to the Marines below me with one hand. And then it was like, okay, well now then I'm talking to air, called in the 9 line, And then it's like, where is the closest LZ? And I was like, crap, it's over there. So we had to cross a wadi. We had to, it was crazy. One of the Marines was in the turmoil, forgot his rifle because he was being a litter bearer, forgot his rifle um, on post. And so I'm like, you idiot. So I gave him my M4 so because I was still treating the Marine as we were moving and bust out the pistol. And then, then all of a sudden RPK starts opening up. And so I'm like, use my body, cover the Marine. And I'm trying to like tell everyone where to go because, again, I'm like the senior dude there. And finally, there's that one A&A. We called him RPG because all he did is carry an RPG with a sea bag on his back filled with extra rockets. And I see, we see where we're getting shot at from the rooftop. I'm like, RPG, RPG, shoot! And I mean, he lays waste. And then luckily, that took care of that threat. And then we got the helo to land and got him out of there. Um, I got in a little trouble when I got back to the FOB for leaving friendly lines with 2 Marines and 12 A&A. But I mean, to me, you know, save the Marine.
Yeah.
And the surgical unit made contact with me later. They said, thank God I had the wherewithal not to give him any morphine. Because they're like, if you would have given him morphine, he would probably be permanently paralyzed from spinal cord and brain swelling. Because the round didn't hit his spinal cord, it hit his vertebrae, which caused instant swelling,
Yeah.
which caused the paralysis. But the paralysis was temporary. But but yeah, I mean, there were lots of. I mean, it was a rough deployment. I mean, we had dudes losing arms, losing legs. Um, it was pretty rough. Um,
How did seeing
the,
those two little girls wounded affect you?
I mean, I think because I was older when I came in and I already had Fallujah under my belt, um, it's pretty easy for me to compartmentalize things. It's not they're little girls, they're patients. Like that's how I was able to separate everything. It's like their patients. I think the thing that troubled me more was when the talent we would pay the locals um, money for jobs like beautification of the area, clean the ditches, dig a well, and the Taliban would come in and we know the Americans gave you money, give us the money, and they'd be like no. Well, what they would do is they torture the kids, and one of their favorite things to do was take boiling oil boiling cooking oil and pour it on the kids. I remember I had a 9-month-old baby got brought to my position with 98% third-degree burns.
Kid didn't
Or,
survive.
I heard not. I mean, I got that. I got the baby evac. The baby was alive when I evac'd her, but I think she survived 2 to 3 hours at Dwyer with a surgical unit. But I mean, you can't have a 9-month-old with like
Yeah. I mean,
those types of injuries.
they barely can. I mean, at 9 months, they barely can regulate their temperature regardless. You know what I mean? Like if you let a 9 month go without any clothes, and now you got massive burns throughout
And
pretty
then I
much.
mean,
Did y'all
it's
find
just
did y'all find the assholes that did that or
oh yeah. I mean, and there are plenty of them too. I mean, lots of dismemberments. Lots like the guys that would help us. We'd be on patrol. It'd be like, oh, here's an arm. Oh, here's a leg. Oh, here's a head. And I mean, the problem was you didn't know who the bad guys were. So
yeah,
we had this
like
one guy, he would bring his kids in to he had 2 daughters. He'd bring his daughters in to get medical care and he'd be like very joyful and happy and, oh, yes, we love the Americans. And, you should come to my house. I invite you to my house for dinner. I invite you to my house for dinner. And we had 2 FET females with us, which were the female engagement team and he's like, "Oh, you bring female Marines. They meet my wife, and well, he planned this huge dinner for us. So we go there, and guess what? Complex ambush, and he was a Taliban. Um,
So the whole goal was to try to pretty much kill y'all, but on top of killing two female service members.
yeah,
Because you know how
because
that would have looked in a news cycle if two females would have been killed in action.
yep, and then because Corman, Corman and the Fett team had bounties. So if there's a Taliban that could kill a Corman, they got a $25,000 bonus. If they kill or capture a female Marine, it was like a $35,000 bonus.
American money or their
I think so, yeah. So I mean, there are huge bounties on it, and it's funny because I was the only Asian in the entire company, and they there was
remember that picture that they made you
oh
take?
yeah, but
I didn't mean to
up
cut you
up
off.
the northern part of Afghanistan in Helmand Province, there was a tribe called the Hazara, and
Hmm.
the Hazara are remnants of Genghis Khan. And so they all look very Asian. So everywhere we'd go, they're like, "Oh, Hazara, Hazara." I was like, "No, no, no." So they all knew me as the Hazara Doc or Hazara Dictor, and that made me feel a little uncomfortable because they knew anytime they saw me on patrol, oh, there's the Doc. But they would
Yeah,
get tricky.
yeah.
They'd get tricky with it. They were gunning for us with IEDs because they would, radio in, "Hey, there's a Marine patrol going out. We figured out who the doc is because what they do is like we'd be on patrol and they cut a kid or injure a kid, and you know then they us being U.S. citizens, we're like, oh, let me help the kid. They'd figure out who the corpsman was, and then they'd radio it, be like, hey, they're going this way. It's this guy. He's about this tall. He's wearing this equipment, and so then they'd just wait. There'd be another dude with a remote detonator, wait for that corpsman to walk past like the designated port, which was like a tree or something, and try to, you know, blow up the corpsman. I think that's what happened to me. I don't remember about 3 days. I was told I was about 2 feet from a DFC when it went off. Luckily, they buried it too deep and angled it wrong, but they know it was an RC controlled IED. And yeah, I lost about 3 or 4 days. I just got the blast injury from that.
How many
But
how many how many IEDs were you uh involved with in Afghanistan? That was like you was either in an MRAP or like right in the in the blast zone.
about 3 or 4. A
How
lot
many-
of mixed together. I mean, I forget. I felt like it was about once a month I was blowing my eardrums. I remember one time a sniper round hit a wall, um, and it blew my eardrum for that because I was posted up on a corner. But those patrols, man, those were a lot different because in Fallujah we rolled deep
Yeah,
on those patrols. In Marja, it was all about satellite patrolling. So you were in 3, 4 man fire teams with the rest of your platoon or the rest of your squad, not even platoon, the rest of your squad a half a click or more away in any direction. So it's, the 3 fire teams moving all separately. So there were a couple times when I was like, we're alone.
yeah.
That's how I blew up a cow one time. I don't know if I ever told you that.
No.
Yeah, I blew up a cow. We were in a big firefight, and it was like me and one Marine and 2 ANA. The ANA ran away. But we were taking fire from this compound, and we knew we were taking fire from that compound. And I was like, I'm out of flash grenades. I don't have any more concussion grenades. We're not going in this courtyard without throwing something over the wall, and we don't have ANA to go in first to be the bullet sponges. So I was like, crap. So I was like, threw the frag grenade over the wall. Boom! As soon as it went boom, kicked in the door, and as soon as it went boom, we just hear screaming. I was like, "Oh crap! I just blew up a family." But what it was I scared them, and I blew up their cow.
Did the guts
But
not fly over the wall on y'all?
no, but as we threw the frag and made entry, the Taliban exited the rear, and then the male of the house is like, "What? What? You owe me money. Why you do this?" I was like, why are you letting the Taliban shoot at us from your house? And but yeah, I mean, it was pretty nuts. The rules of engagement were so bad that we couldn't shoot at someone with a rifle unless they were pointing it at us and actively shooting at us. And then we couldn't use arty, we couldn't use mortars. Um, the largest rocket we could use was an AT4. And AT4s, laws, and 40 mics didn't do anything because they'd hide in these mud compounds, and an AT4 would hit the wall and just leave a dent in the mud. Wouldn't even really do much. And so, like, I feel like our hands were tied a lot. Um, but yeah, lots of firefights. We had civilian combat camera embedded with us. We had some reporters embedded with us, and incidentally, one of the Marines after we got back, he got out and his wife went to school in Oregon. And incidentally, that professor was the photographer reporter that was with us. And because I remember he took this one picture we're engaged where all the Marines jumped on one side of the dirt road. Me and him jumped in the other side, and we're getting engaged. And I was telling the Marines, "You come to our side," and they're like, "No, you come to our side." And the reporter was taking pictures, and he got a couple good ones of me that I found out later on. But he would bring me up in classes when he would show his students the photos, and was talking about 2-6 and the corpsman that saved his life. Um, and that afterwards, the teacher asked, or my buddy's wife asked the teacher, and he's like, "Do you mean 2-6? My husband was with them there." And he's like, "Yeah." And so after that, my buddy called me. He's like, "You were talked about today in my wife's photography class."
Small world. Yeah, a lot of those guys, um, some of them, got an opportunity to come back over. So you guys leave Afghanistan, um, and then you go. How long were you back in Lejeune before you moved on?
About 4 months
And then you moved.
uh,
You said you moved on to
to field med.
film ed. So how was that? How was that training the next
It
generation of
it was
men?
tough. I mean, you always hear the stories, kinder, gentler. Every generation is kinder, gentler. Um, I mean, I see it when we were at 2-6. Like I remember dudes getting in pretty big trouble, which they get kicked out of the Marine Corps now. That wouldn't even get NJP'd for. They'd get office hours with
Yeah,
gunny, which was sometimes worse. But by the time I left 2-6, dudes were getting NJP'd for log PT on River Road.
we used to do that shit all the time.
I know, but now it's considered hazing, even though everyone in the platoon is doing it.
Yeah,
Um, but I saw it at Field Med. From when I started, wake up morning doesn't stop until you have at least 3 students puking. The time I left Field Med, there's no more morning PT. You just go wake them up, you, march them to chow, introduce yourself, give them bearing. Where I don't think that sets them up for success to be with the Marines, let alone combat. Because I mean, I remember all the dumb, stupid games we'd play, but it wasn't until I was senior that I realized that those had life lessons. It wasn't
it prepared you for because what I was always told was that you always get casualties when you're exhausted, when you're tired. So on the patrol on the way back, right? You don't never get casualties. Well, I'm pretty sure, but rarely did you ever get a casualty where you was sitting out in the AC or sitting down cool, eating MRE in the shade. So I tell people all the time, I was like, I get hazing can be taken out of control, but I mean, I was hazed, but I think it made me better because it kind of weeds out who the weak ducklings are. Like, I'm in no shape form condoning hazing, but I'm saying like you rather,
training with a purpose.
yeah, you rather would weed out those guys and girls there than have them get good soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines killed in combat
Mhm.
because they've been kind of like um sliding under the radar, and then when shit hit the fan, oh, they get like they get a good service member killed.
Yep,
And you
exactly.
get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I got in trouble a lot of times for threatening to kill people, because I'd have incompetent corpsmen in training exercises try to, not part of my company, like go mess something up, and then my corpsmen are getting blamed. You know, it's just like stay in the BAS.
Yeah.
Don't touch my
So
Marines.
did did you when you got home, did you have any issues like adjusting back to, like, how it is in like when you get back to I call it the civilian world shit. But when you get back, when you get back to United States, right?
Um, I think I adjusted well enough. I mean, it the 2 week dwell time on your way back doesn't do anything. But I mean, I had a long enough dwell time where, I mean, for first couple months, hyper vigilant. You know, why is there a package in the road? Why is this cardboard box over here? You know, not liking busy places, being amazed at like what's in the grocery store. And I remember I got a cooler and filled with ice and cold drinks, and I everywhere I went, whether I was in the car or at the house, I always had a cold beverage available to myself.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that because I was able to compartmentalize the way I did, and I know I was older when I first came in, and older than a lot of the guys in the Afghanistan deployment, that I was able to adjust better. Um, so I don't think I had any that many problems, I guess, that way.
It like so you know obviously I'm still active, so you see it now with a lot of the junior sellers where like they have like they're I mean they just quite frankly they bitch and complain about everything, bro, like
Oh yeah.
everything. And so when you was at Phil Med, right, coming back two deployments, right, coming back two deployments, the first one not, pretty much go to FMSS 2 weeks later in Fallujah. So now you're trying to train up a lot of these new, uh, well, they're not called 84-4 anymore, but like the new these 84-4 prospects, right? And we still was in Afghanistan, although it was it maybe was tapering off just a little bit kinetically, um, which I never been there, so I shouldn't say that. But how was that approach for you? Like some of these kids
Um,
being like lackadaisical, not taking it serious, and you have been on two combat deployments. How was that?
Lots of motivational training. Um, Lots of sea stories. Um, I was probably I was voted many a time the most hated instructor by students, but they all admitted that I was the best teacher.
Yeah,
Um, but they hated me the most because I was the hardest on my platoon. Um, it was one team, one fight. You know, you're falling asleep, the whole platoon lost chair privileges.
yeah. So
You
everybody's
know,
standing up.
stand by to stand by. Oh, you guys, you know, not paying attention. Oh, well, let's go wake up outside. Drop your blouses. And I always treated it like green side, whereas it's not hazing if you're doing it too. And so I figured it's definitely not hazing if I'm doing it too in a harder fashion. So whenever my students were in boots and utes, I'd be boots and utes and flak jacket with full sappies. Um, and I had one of probably the best COs I ever had, Captain Clonks. Um, Dude was so tough, he had a heart attack during a PRT in the middle of it, and he finished his PRT while having the heart attack. But
Yeah, my
what he said was some of the best advice that I've ever gotten that I still use today when anything with work was, if you can stand in front of my desk and look me in the eyes and explain what you did, then go ahead and do it. So whether it be hazing, whether it be, you know, not hazing, but like extra training, whatever you did, as long as you can back up what you did and tell me in my face, go ahead and do it. Um, so, I mean, I think that was a pretty poignant lesson that he taught me because, I use that at work all the time. I was like, you know, nobody's around, a decision needs to be made. This is the best out of all these choices. This is the best decision to make. I'm going to make this decision. Otherwise, something's not going to get done.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I was hard on the students, and I'd tell them, I was like, this is the stuff you're going to run into. The Marines, if you're going to be stupid, you better be physically fit because they'll forgive you for being dumb if you can carry ammo and you can hike all day. Or like maybe if you're less physically fit, if you know how to save a life, they'll give you some credit. But you can't be dumb and weak at the same time.
Yeah.
And
Sergeant Hamilton used to always say, when the mind fails to comprehend, the body must pay. So,
so
like you said, if you're dumb, you might as well just be strong.
so a lot of the corpsmen, especially the dudes that gave me the most hate, they're like, this guy's full of crap. He doesn't know what he's talking about. They deployed pretty quick after FMTV, and it was funny because within a week of them getting back from their first deployment, they came back to Field Med and were like, HM2, we just want to tell you, you were right. We're we were so wrong. We thought you were full of crap the entire time, and like everything you said was true. So, but I mean, I tried to, I had speeches that I'd line up, when they, break them down, build them up, break them down, build them up. But I mean, I meant every word I ever told the students. Especially, I used to tell them, I don't care why you're here. I don't care, you know, what brought you here from life. It doesn't matter. I don't care what you do for fun, whether before you, what you get to get your high. It's whether you think drinking, partying, whatever gets you high. There is no better feeling than when you get back from deployment and you get off that bus to your homecoming, and it's not your wife, it's not your kids, it's not your parents that come to greet you. It's that Marine that snuck away from the hospital to be the first one to shake your hand and say, Doc, thank you for saving my life. And I mean, to me, and I tell the students this all the time, there's no better feeling than that. You know, that Marine that snuck away, was UA from the hospital to shake your hand and say, thank you. Um, and I used to tell the students too, is like, I've been put in for, you know, all these extra awards. Like I was put in for one or two silver stars that never went anywhere because I was a corpsman. I was put in for a couple bronze stars. My one silver star got downgraded to a letter of commendation. But it doesn't. I was like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the chest candy you got on your chest. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how cool you are. It doesn't matter your rank. It doesn't even matter if you got your pin or not for the FMF pin. I was like, what matters and how you measure your success as a corpsman, because the corpsmen are like, you know, oh, you're a successful corpsman because you got all this chest candy, or you're a successful corpsman because you got your pin, or you got this. I was like, none of that is how you measure your success as a corpsman. It's like it doesn't matter what your rank is, how much chest candy you got, how many awards you got. How you measure your success as a corpsman is how many fathers you bring back to their kids, how many husbands you bring back to their wives. I was like, that's how you measure your success as a corpsman. So, I mean, a lot of stories like that, a lot of incentive training, as I'll call it. Um, just trying to prepare those dudes for deployments as best as I could.
So, when did the diagnosis come?
Diagnosis actually came before I left field med or left for field med, because I was having blood pressure issues, and we're like, why am I having blood pressure issues? Um, so they sent me to internal medicine. Internal medicine did some tests and like took an A1C, and they're like, oh, you're diabetic. It's like, what? I was like, I've never been diabetic. And so it was a lot of workups, a lot of labs, a lot of TBI therapy for them to figure it out. And then, but we kept a lot of stuff quiet, I guess. We kept a lot of stuff quiet because I was going to a non-deployable billet. We're seeing if the TBI ended up ever resolving, if the diabetes would go away. So it didn't become a problem until I tried to do my PA package and become an officer. So then I did my reenlistment physical. I did my reenlistment physical with a civilian, and they're like, "You're super diabetic." I was like, "I can't. We can't. You can't deploy. You gotta go on med board." So I went in for my reenlistment physical, left on med board, and about a year. It took about a year to process my med board. I got 100% medically retired.
So you say you got neurogenic.
Neurogenic type 2 in neurogenic induced.
So is
So
that
the
from like pretty much your nerves has been like shot to
so
shit and you got rewired or
the overpressure from what I was told was the overpressure from all those blasts, specifically that one I was really close to, caused so much significant damage to my hypothalamus and my pituitary that because your hypothalamus specifically produces a hormone called vasopressin, and one of the things that that does is it's a diuretic hormone, but it also tells your pancreas to work.
yeah.
Um, Something got miswired with the overpressure, and I've been uncontrolled type 2 ever since. So
So
regardless of diet, regardless of exercise, I'm an insulin dependent diabetic.
so you do insulin or you do metformin? Like what
I do two types of insulin, and I also do another weekly injectable.
you got the pump? You got the insulin pump?
I don't have a pump yet. I do have a Dexcom that does a constant glucose, but I take Lantus twice a day. That's my long acting insulin. And then I take Novolog, which is a quicker acting insulin. And then I take Mounjaro, which is which helps my body utilize the insulin that I'm already producing. So I got to take all the shots, and I still go over. I still end up with high glucose sometimes.
Yeah.
But because of that, because it took them so long to get me somewhat regulated. I mean, I had diabetic necrosis of my legs, so like my skin was dying on my shins. I have all these nasty scars. My eyeball popped about a year and a half ago because of the diabetic retinopathy. My macula just popped super close to my optic nerve, so I had to get eyeball injections for a while.
Oh
Um,
my God.
so I mean, I have all my toes and fingers, but I've been dealing with, I guess, other issues because of it.
So damn man, that's that's insane. Like you're still a pretty young guy.
I mean, I'm 40. I don't feel young.
You 40? Oh yeah,
yeah,
because I'm 37.
yeah, I'll be 41 in January.
Oh shit. I'll be 38 in April. So you all right, so they said, hey man, med board 100%. You get your walking papers. Were you prepared for that? Like, did it hit you
Not
like a
really.
ton of bricks? Or
I was super bitter, and it
yeah,
did hit me like a ton of bricks because I still sometimes refer to it as getting kicked out.
yeah,
And my wife's like, you can't tell people you got kicked out of the Navy. It's like you were medically retired. There's a difference. But I was super butthurt because I just wanted to deploy again.
yeah,
Um, and I'd hear stories about you know deployments that happened right after I left Marja, and I was like, maybe that could have ended differently if I was able to deploy and I was there on the ground.
yeah,
Um, so I mean, I was real bitter for about a year. I didn't do anything. I didn't go to school. I was single at the time, or single for half of it. I was just living at my house with my dog, living off disability or my retirement, and then just growing my beard out and just kind of being bitter about the whole situation.
yeah,
Um, and it wasn't until I met my now wife where I started picking my life back up. Because then went back to school, got my bachelor's, um, tried to go to PA school, and found out that was a pain in the ass. Um, because they said, the recruiters would tell you, oh, we like veterans because they tend to do better than, traditional students because they have medical background. They are, they don't do as well in the didactic or the bookwork, but they slay it in the hands-on practical. So, I finished my bachelor's with like a like a 3.2 GPA in biology with work in a viral. I worked in a virology lab for a little bit too. Um, PA school wants 1,000 hours of hands-on patient care. I think I logged 64,000 hours because I totaled up all my corpsman work and applied for 2 years in a row. The second year of PA school, they're like, "We see that you have substantial hands-on patient care hours, but we want you to get more." I was like, that made me butthurt. So then I just started applying for jobs, and luckily, um, how I fell on the job that I got was I actually applied for the wrong position. I applied for a management position in clinical research, and thinking that I have transferable life skills and leadership. And they're like, "That's true, but you don't have any transferable life skills for clinical research in managing and clinical research. But we have this veteran apprentice program." So I joined this veteran apprentice program, which streamlined a veteran with a science degree and a medical background through into being a clinical research profession. So, I did that successfully, became a CRA1, then, CRA2, senior CRA. And like I said, now I'm a clinical trial or clinical team manager managing CRAs on a clinical trial. Um,
What
but
what do you miss the most about the military?
I would say it's the camaraderie. Because a lot of times you hear, the stories, you hear people saying, they miss being in, they miss being in. But one of my senior dudes told me, you know, pain forgets. So like you forget the stupid crap. Like you forget, and I remember you were there, um, doing seal crawls in Mop 4 at Barria for hours. And I'm like, we're in country. Why the hell are we doing this? Or like, why are we sweating and almost passing out? Um, you know, or that 3 a.m. Police call around the barracks. You forget all that, but you remember the good stuff. You remember the camaraderie. Deployments themselves. Like just because life was simple.
Yeah,
You know, you you you. There was no Facebook. There was no mortgage. There was no news. There was just you and the dudes you're deploying with. That whole band of brothers is a real thing. And it's like you wake up, eat some chow, go on patrol, save the good guys, get the bad guys, work out, eat some more food, go to bed, wake up, do it all over again. And I mean, the camaraderie that you build with that, it's unbreakable. I feel
yeah.
because
And you hear that a lot with people that get out of the military. They say they feel lost because in the military we fucking eat, sleep, shit together, like all of that stuff. So you get out and like it's people. It's not a sense of camaraderie because you get to the civilian. Just it's gonna be different, man. I retire and I got 344 days left, and like, am I nervous? Yeah. Do I have a job offer and occupational safety already lined up, but that doesn't matter because the structure of the military and then just the people of the military, you're not going to be able to find it. Like, you're not going to be like, the the military is, we're professional when we need to be, but a lot of time we're unprofessional. Like, in a
and I
couple
mean
of jokes.
I used to get told this all the time, and I was like, yeah, that's not true. But about senior dudes, especially when I was in schools, so I really didn't believe the instructors. They're like, if you want to go be an EMT or you want to go be a nurse, a lot of times the prior service veterans, culminate.
Yeah,
So like you go to you're around a bunch of EMTs, the prior corpsmen and medics tend to gravitate and hang out with each other.
yeah,
Nurses, the prior active duty nurses, tend to gravitate towards each other. I used to think that was bullcrap, but the people I am closest with in clinical research are prior veterans.
Yeah.
Um, one of them retired as a senior chief, and he was a corpsman. Another one got out as a second class, and he was a SARC with
Yeah.
MARSOC. And then the guy that I'm closest with, he was Air Force Special Forces. And I mean, we're the one we go to each other for everything. It's like, hey, I'm having a problem with this, or hey, you know, what's the deal with this thing at work, or and because lack of a better term, we speak the same language.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge. And luckily, I would say for you, you've gotten a lot of blue side experience since leaving 2-6. I would say if it wasn't for me going to field med, I wouldn't have been as prepared for civilian life than if I was just belt fed green side the whole time.
Yeah.
Because um, in with 2-6, we're told don't talk to females, don't look at females. You talk to a female, you're going to get NJP'd. Like just don't look at them, don't talk to them, don't even acknowledge that they're there. Um, well, I go to field med. There's female instructors, there's female students, and I'm like, oh, do I don't know, you know, if I say the wrong thing, am I going to get in trouble? But then I just took it as because the female instructors we had were cool, they were real cool. But then I just took it as, you know, you're not a male student. I used to tell them this too because they're like, you're discriminating because I'm this or because I'm this. I was like, no, you're all equally worthless. I was like, when you're in this uniform, you know, you're not a male, you're not a female, you're not, I don't care who you're dating. Because when I was an instructor, like, don't ask, no tell got repealed and that DACA got repealed. So that opened up a whole thing of admin issues. But I mean, I was like, I don't care. I don't care if you're gay, straight, purple. You're in that uniform, you're a corpsman, and you're here to learn your job. You're here to learn how to save lives. Um, but I mean, I say that like, I was definitely a little hard on the students, but I don't think I would have been as prepared because there's also a lot of Navy blue side elements with field med. There's a lot of blue falconing going on between instructors. So I mean, everybody's rooting for you and wants you to succeed until you succeed, and then once you succeed, they all want to bring you down.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Times in a bucket.
and that was my first experience with that element of blue side Navy because I checked into field med and I was one of the only dudes that had a recent combat experience. I was one of the only instructors that had two combat actions. I was one of the only instructors that had like all three uh, um, sea service campaign medals, um, and a lot of the dudes were actually wing or group that have never seen combat. And so I show up, I'm like, this is what's actually going on. I was there a year ago. These are the lessons learned that we had from combat. Um, we're teaching this wrong. We're teaching this wrong. Rewriting curriculum. You know, being able to teach this stuff well. And then like I think I hit sailor of the quarter, 2 quarters in a row, and then it's just like blue falconing left and right. Um,
They wanted to get you out of the way.
so I learned hard because I was being greenside. Everyone wears what you see is what you get. Like if Marines have a problem with you, they tell you then and there. You hash it out, and then that's it. There's no crap talking. There's no you know rumor milling. There's no like there's not. I don't feel like there's any of that on green side, but blue side, man, they were like, oh, he's doing well, makes me look bad. Well, let's start this rumor. Um, so which I found that happens a little bit on corporate too. You have to watch your back on corporate. Watch
Yeah.
what you say to who you say. But I mean, all in all, I think I mean the good thing is you've been, I think, blue side long enough. I think you'll do well transitioning to any civilian job.
Yeah, we'll see. So what? Okay, what advice would you give someone who is maybe looking to join the Navy or just join the military in general?
Uh, I would say go into it for the right reasons. Go into it because you want to make a difference, and go into it knowing what job or what rate or what MOS, regardless of what branch of service you're going into, know what you want to do before you go in there. Because I feel like those people are the ones that do the best. And I mean, if you go in without a plan, like Marine Corps, they're going to make you whatever they need to fill an MOS for. In the Navy, I don't know if they still do it, but you're going to go in as undesignated, and then you have a long road ahead of you. But I feel that if you can go in knowing a job you want, whether it's being a corpsman and being in the medical field, whether it's like you like computers and going into, IT, or going into, you're real good at linguistics and you're figuring out things. So maybe you want to go into Intel. Um, Join the service knowing what you want to do, because those guys, I feel, do the best because
Yeah,
they go into it knowing what they want to do. They know they're there for a job. I see the guys that struggle the most are the ones that, how I call it, join for the wrong reason.
yeah,
Um, they join because you know I forget how many boots we had from Afghanistan that were like this, but we had so many of them that were like, I like playing Call of Duty, and so I thought I could do that for real life. I
uh,
mean, I know you've seen the memes for
yeah,
that kind of thing, but I mean, it was real. Like dudes checking in saying, "I liked Call of Duty," and they're the first ones to get admin cept for failure to adapt. Um, but and then just go in open minded. Everything is a learning experience, whether you think so or not. Just because someone's hard on you or think you're getting picked on, you know, incentive training is not the same as like when we were junior. So it's not like, hey, boot, go get me a soda. Like there's even lessons in that, I feel. So like if your team leader, your squad leader is like saying, go get me a soda, and you're not dropping what you're doing to go get them a soda, then you're getting, harassed a little bit. But the life lesson in that is you go to combat, you got to have blind obedience. So that team leader, that squad leader tells you to get down, you don't have time to argue with them. If they're telling you to get down, it's telling you to get down to save your life.
yeah.
There's lessons. I feel like,
There's
being
lessons
open
in everything
minded.
that we do.
hmm I used to tell my students were like, "Why are you so tough on us, like with physical fitness?" It's because you know you're not only carrying all of your gear, you're carrying a med bag, and you know I I don't know if you remember Ski.
Yeah, big ski.
Oh man, he goes down. He was so big. His side sappies were small E sappies.
Yeah,
They
it's
had
fuck.
to,
He was like about
they
6'4", at least 260,
yeah,
two
and I
seventy.
mean he goes down. The Marines aren't gonna like the Marines aren't gonna go get him. They're gonna expect you to go get him as a doc. So if you're not physically fit to go move a 260-pound Marine plus all their gear, I was like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna just tell that Marine's family, sorry, I wasn't strong enough. So and then I was when physical fitness, I'd always mix in mental stuff, like not mental games, but like mental knowledge. And I was like, because if you can remember how to adequately put on a tourniquet, or adequately, you can remember when and when not to use these drugs, when you're puking exhausted, when you're so exhausted and ran down and you're puking, and you can remember how to save a Marine's life, now you know how to save a Marine in a high stress environment. Because I was like, they don't like to attack you when you're fresh. Typically, especially the Taliban, they like to wait. until you're about halfway down through the patrol and you're about halfway through all your water and you're a little tired and you've been walking all day with all this gear. That's when they want to start messing with you. So it's like they're not going to mess with you when you're fresh and ready and, you know, physically fit. So it's like that's why you're doing this. So I mean, go off tangent again, but
Nah,
I
it's
mean,
good, man. It's good. It's good. It's good. I think, people always, you can always learn something, and I think people who have experiences should pass on their experiences to other people, because you should take lessons or tools from people who, from other people's mistakes, other people's successes, so um it's, I guarantee a lot of those, some of those students probably wasn't, they probably didn't take anything from it, but I guarantee a lot of those students that you came across took a lot from it, and they're still in. They're probably telling other people about you, or if they're out, they're probably still using some of those uh lessons. So, man, in closing, um first episode, um I know you got a pretty good following on your TikTok channel, right? So
I think so. I mean, I slowed down quite a bit. I actually haven't posted anything in a while,
yeah,
but
but
I've been
people
trying.
tell them where they can find you at on that, man.
TikTok, it's the bearded Asian or the bearded AZN for Asian. There's a lot of videos. It's a mixed bag.
Yeah,
There's a lot of military satire from stories that I've had in the service, and then a lot of medical, a lot of medical. Like I think I've purchased at least 10 or 11 different tourniquets that are out there, and I show how to use each one. I show how to do first aid with all kinds of injuries, because not to get too political, but I think that the biggest thing is that in today, it's not, with today and all the violence and all the, mass shootings, every week there's a new mass shooting. With how divided the country is, we're not going to solve the gun problem. It's,
no,
it's, it's just not going to happen. But I think what can happen is we can solve how we respond to mass shootings, and essentially, you know, give everybody a little piece of FMTV.
yeah,
So that way, if, God forbid, someone is caught in one of those scenarios, they know what to do. Because if you look at a lot of the casualty reports, and I've pulled a lot of them up from some of these mass shootings, even Uvalde, the school shooting there, and a lot of the other mass shootings, um, you know, you have, how long do you have? You have 2 minutes.
yeah,
2 minutes to, give life-saving interventions for a life-threatening bleed. Where if you have people that aren't getting medical care for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes, those are all casualties that may have had a chance if they got basic first aid within
yeah,
2 minutes. But your average person doesn't know how to do direct pressure. They don't know how to do a tourniquet. They don't know how to make a tourniquet. So that's what a lot of it is. So I've hit some road bumps, some speed bumps over the last couple of months. So I haven't been really posting, but the whole goal with that is to develop those videos into online courses for free that people can get, and then you know trying to make my own IFACs. I have
yeah,
proprietary IFACs already designed, and proprietary medical equipment, and start trying to get those out. Donating some to school. You know, just I feel like that is a better approach than arguing with anyone on either side of the fence
yeah.
about
It's they
gun control.
yeah, like you said, it's like I have guns or whatever, right? But I know for a fact I'm not gonna fucking go shoot up a school. But it's kind of, it's pointless trying to talk to the other side, right? Like, it is. So, like you said, they won't even, both sides won't even come to the table and even talk about doing something. So, unfortunately, right, we have to take matters into our own hands, and that comes into the form of, you know teaching kids how to barricade, run, fight, hide. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, since whenever I was in elementary school, the drills that we was doing was fire drills and how to get under the desk if a hurricane or a tornado came.
Hmm.
Now they're teaching these kids how to run, fight, hide, and inside of that, you know, run, fight, definitely in the fight side of it is going to be, unfortunately, teaching kids how to put a pressure dressing on or a tourniquet. It's shitty because they shouldn't have to. That should be the last thing they should be worried about. They should be going to school worrying about what slice of pizza they're gonna have today, or whether or not they can get 100 on that spelling bee or whatever. But haven't been
Hmm.
in school in a long time. But you get what I'm saying. They shouldn't have to be worrying about. They should have first aid kits in the classroom because you scraped your knee because you're playing basketball, kickball, or you was roughhousing it at recess. Not have a IFAC in the classroom because you have to worry about some jackass coming through and shooting up a bunch of people. So, but yeah, I mean, what you have in mind that's a solid idea because no one else is gonna come and save us.
So, I mean, yeah. So that's. I mean, I think things are going to get ramping up again pretty soon. So, I mean, bearded Asian, the bearded AZN. Um, got the TikTok set up. I think I have a Facebook still. Um, so, you know, once that gets going more, um, get those classes out because again, both sides of the fence, pro gun and anti gun, nobody can argue that being prepared medically is a bad idea.
Yeah, yeah. I'll definitely drop your links in the comment section so people can find you, man. I greatly appreciate you coming on the first
Thank you.
episode. I had first platoon, baby. Had to get you on here first. I was like, it's no other person I want to get on here
That goon
first.
squad.
Hopefully you can come back for a second episode. I know you're a real busy man and stuff with the family, a beautiful wife and kids, but um definitely gonna have to try to get you back on for another episode.
Sounds good, man.
All right, man. Well, until next time, caduceus.
Thank you.
All right, man. Take care.